Hey traders, Dennis Wilburn, the AutoPilot Trader. The final bell just rang and the markets finished this Friday mixed. Indecisive. Which way is it going to go? Is inflation going to basically stab us all in the back and drive the markets down? Or are we going to power on through this? We will have to wait till next week to find out. But for this weekend, I've given you 3 stocks that have some potential for next week, plus a bonus. I've taken a look at every one of my stock picks, 31 of them so far this year, to see how well they perform. You're going to be really surprised, so watch this video all the way to the end, and you'll see why checking out the stocks that we suggest every week is a great way to trade your way to wealth and financial freedom. Here we go, right now. Good afternoon, everybody. This is Dennis Wilburn, the Active Trend Trader and also the AutoPilot Trader. I want to welcome you to today's session of Trade Your Way to Wealth and Financial Freedom. I just want to make sure. Can everybody see my screen? It should basically be this real handsome guy on the right-hand side.
I don't see that.
Okay. And so anyway, I want to welcome you all to today's session. A couple of things. We're going to have to move quickly. Want to keep it really compact for everybody. If you are joining us over on the YouTube channel, please just let me know you are there and who you are. We'll be basically providing some information over there. And just remember that all the materials we do present are for training purposes. Traders should always paper trade any new method prior to the risk of their own personal capital. Here's where we're sitting. As of about 9 o'clock this morning Pacific time is when I take the measure of how things are going on the, and right now I'm tracking right along my 40% line. The 40% line is what that's my objective every year of trading. One of the things I'll share with Steve and Anil that I did is I've gone back, and I'm going to share it a little bit later in today's session. I've gone back and I've looked at all 31 stocks that I have suggested since the beginning of the year, and I've done an evaluation where if I would have put in my stop loss and if I would have, bought the following week, how those entities would have done. And I was really impressed. I encourage both of you to go back and look at your picks if you have that data for the last 31 weeks to see how they have done, and we can basically just talk about it at one of our upcoming sessions. Jeff, nice to see you over there on the YouTube channel. So here's where we're sitting as of, let me go back, here's where we're sitting last week, doing well. And then here's where we're sitting this week. We've jumped up to a little bit over 34%. This is including both paper profits, in other words, that have not been cashed out yet, and also closed trades. Beat the S&P by 47.86%. Very pleased with that. I look to continue that direction. One of the reasons in today's session, I'm going to jump, rather than doing the market review right now, Anil has another webinar that he has to get across to, another Zoom that he needs to get across to. And so what I'm going to do is, rather than, I will follow up on his trade with a look at the indexes, and then Steve and I will provide our suggested candidates for this week. And again, these aren't stock recommendations. They are just basically things that are hitting our radar that we may want to invest in. Anil, as I pull over to your stock, there we go. I want to remind everybody, we do this, and I provide this a webinar as a courtesy and also to help people find great stocks. I don't ask for anything in return other than I am going to start asking for this one simple ask. Once the recording comes out, invite one person to join us next week that you know who might like to trade, and share the link to the video on whatever social media platform you like to use. Now, if it's Instagram, you'll have to basically just tell them about it. But if it's Facebook or something like that, please share the link, and then that people can go and watch that link. Because between Anil, Steve, and myself, we provide exceptionally great value in the stocks that we pick. And you'll see why I say that when we get to that section that I'll show you. how successful the picks that I've made this year have been so far. Anil, I like this stock. Tell us about it.
Yeah, let me tell you just very quick background on what's going on, what I'm noticing in last 2 weeks. I've been getting a lot of weekly signals on my triple screen system since about this week and last. And my source list is always growth 250. And this stock, a net, showed up on the list, which was not on the previous list. So I went back and looked at it. Sure enough, it had a daily signal about 10 days ago or something, more than that. And weekly is about to come. And this is a good sign. If a lot of stocks are showing up with a weekly signal, that means the market is really turning. Will it hold? Who knows? But the signs are excellent. This stock is a very strong fundamentals. Had a daily signal, as I said, and weekly MACD has already crossed. And looks like today it's doing pretty good. So
now, are you a buyer right here? Are you going to wait for a pullback? What's your entry criteria?
I bought it yesterday.
Okay, cool.
Yeah,
that's excellent. So, well, if somebody was going to be looking at, where would you suggest they look at buying for themselves?
If you look at the chart, it's still within the base. So the stock has not broken out yet.
Okay.
So according to my system, it's buyable anytime now, or if you prefer a pullback, buy it, little pullback, but get it before it reaches the breakout territory so that it'll probably stall at that point a little bit.
Okay.
What would you consider the breakout level?
I'll have to look at MarketSmith quick. I'll send you a short email.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Okay.
So, yeah, Annette, I like it. It's got, this has been on one of my lists. It also has good weekly options. And so a good, strong candidate. If I were going to be trading this one, I would be specifically looking for a pullback because I'm a pullback trader, guys. I mean, that's what I do. So, and that would be
approach.
What's that, Steve?
It's the same approach I would take. I'd be looking for a
the pullback to where? I don't know. It could be this dotted line right here is the 200-day moving average. That is extremely positive. That is breaking out there. Excellent.
Yeah, I'm looking at MarketSmith now. It's 12% to pivot. So it has still, before it breaks out, it has 12% to go.
That's up here.
Yeah, that's probably the all-time high. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah. And then, cool. And then one of the alternative entries could be just you connect this high here to this high there. And that gives you another potential, if it crosses that line, that also gives you an early entry projection. Thank you, Neil.
Okay, thank you. And I got to go.
Okay, buddy.
Have a good one. Have a good one, Anil.
Thanks. Bye now.
Thanks a lot. Hey, let's jump over and just take a real quick look at the indexes themselves. And let's start with the S&P. One of the things I notice about the indexes is that we have a mixed market today. And every time you have a mixed market is a sign of indecision and or uncertainty and or some perhaps some sector rotation. I have drawn up the S&P with the Fibonacci extension. We talked about that a little bit. Look where it's stalling. It's stalling out right at the 78% extension, because when you do the extensions, you have three targets, 78, 100, and 1272. Now, are we breaking down dramatically? Heavens no. However, we are overbought, and the momentum looks like it wants to shift and fall back down. And a healthy pullback would be a pullback to in between the 8 here and the 20-day moving average there. About the midsection of, right there at about the 404 level would be a healthy pullback. And so that's what that's what I'm looking at. Barry, I'll come back to that question in just a little bit. And Steve's also has picked up on that. And so basically that's what I'm looking for, is a pullback into those areas, an area between the 8 and the 20. It may be the midsection of the Fibonacci. So that's what I've got going with the S&P right now. I do not have, well, I had a bearish reversal signal yesterday, a bearish Harami. Again, not a strong signal to the downside whatsoever. And you have to remember, whenever you have a bearish reversal signal or even a bullish reversal signal, it shows you where you're going to get the reversal. It doesn't tell you how much the reversal is going to be. Next, the Qs. The Qs were hammered a little bit this morning because of the potential of higher inflation, because the jobs report that came through much stronger than anticipated. No matter what your belief about higher inflation, stagflation, the recession, all that kind of stuff, I encourage you, if you want to get the rest of the story, go over to shadowstats.com. That's shadowstats.com. Why? Shadowstats.com provides you measurements of the economy based on how they used to measure it back in the 90s. And what you'll find surprising there is, according to the way we used to measure the economy, we are already in a recession, have been in this recession for quite some time, and the inflation is not 9%, it is closer to 14+%, according to before they changed the definition of how they define things, which isn't that kind of crazy? You don't like the way things are turning out, just change the definition, and then you can basically walk away from there. So anyway, I encourage you, go over to Shadow Stats, see what you can see. And then Barry asked a question for, how often do I miss an entry because the pullback just doesn't execute? And I agree with Steve's answer. About a third of the time, maybe a quarter of the time, I'm anticipating and looking for the pullback, expecting a pullback either to the 8-day or the 20-day. And if I don't get that, I don't need to trade that entity. I just don't, because it didn't trigger me in and provide me an opportunity to buy at wholesale that I have defined. And that's part of what we do when we structure every one of our trades. We define, this is what I do. This is the wholesale price I am willing to pay, just like shopping. That's as much as I'm going to pay. And so if I don't get to that, I pass on the deal. It's like buying a car. Russell is actually looking a little bit stronger than the other entities. I'm kind of liking Russell, and I'll be watching that for, again, a pullback, but it looked like it started a pullback today, got right down to the 8-day moving average, just slightly above it today, and it's reversed back up to the upside. Earlier today, this is one of the things be aware of. Earlier today, when price actions were down and it was showing a shooting star type of formation for today, the TSI had actually crossed to the downside. So if you're looking at the oscillators or indicators early in the day after a sell-off, just remember, by the end of the day, it may have changed the story. So that's what we've got going there. Again, utilize the support provided by both the moving averages and or the Fibonacci's for adjusting and making your potential trades. And there's Mark. Mark, you're over there on YouTube. Awesome. You like Shadow Stats, huh? Yeah, it's really an interest. My son turned me on to it. So that's what I've got going for the indexes. Let me get Steve back. So Steve, what do you think?
I pretty much agree with you. It's just you just need to see how the market plays out. I remain quite bullish, but anything can happen.
Yeah. And so, anything, like you said, anything can happen. And at this particular time, because and I think you agree with this, is because the short-term trend with higher highs and higher lows is in place, I have to favor trading the pullbacks. for my entries. That's the way I trade.
That's my bread and butter. Yeah.
Okay, excellent. So now Steve has a great stock this week too, and I was just there yesterday. And you're probably people are going, what? Who? And you'll see what I'm talking about as soon as I place this up there. There we go. Costco.
Yeah.
Who can argue with Costco? So what's your entry and what are you expecting?
I'm waiting for a pullback. I'm now starting to trail my entry above the prior day. As the pullback continues, if it continues, I've just been trailing stops above the prior buy entries above this prior day's high.
Okay.
If it trails lower, I'll keep lowering the buy entry.
Okay, awesome. And I love that process that Steve's talking about because it's a conditional order that's using what they call a stop order that will allow him to get into the trade, but it has to trigger going above yesterday's high. What do you put in a nickel's worth?
Yeah, a penny. It just depends. Just a tad.
Okay.
Yeah.
So excellent. And then stop loss?
If that triggers, the stop loss would be that bar, the entry day bar low.
Okay, excellent. I like that. So that is an excellent way to go because that way, and what Steve has to do with that particular method is that let's say he doesn't fill on Monday and it notches down again, then he just kind of moves his stop entry down as prices fall.
Right.
Yep.
I
like it, Steve.
Basically it. Yep.
And the other thing you can do also with that is you can also do option orders off of a similar type situation. So
that's what I do. I trigger an option buy at the market when the stock price breaks.
Okay. Yeah. And so if you were able to watch the video I posted yesterday for the market review, I covered this particular stock. I anticipated it was going to get a good report after earnings, and it did, but it didn't show up after hours. It basically didn't even show up until it clicked in earlier today. It was sitting about the 275 level early this morning. Matter of fact, it started down here at 272. And this is my pick for the week, VRTX. How am I going to trade it? I will look for a pullback into the middle third of today's candlestick. In other words, right into that third. And so that would make it where I would be looking to buy somewhere about, 282 to 283, maybe down to the 20-day moving average at 281. Excellent opportunity for doing a trade with options on this. And even if I let it take out the low, pick it up here at this level here, even if I let it take out the low, I'm still looking at no more than a 3.5% loss. I could take it to Fibonacci and still be inside 5%, in which I like that kind of potential stop losses. And this is a little powerhouse of a stock. And so again, I'm looking at somewhere at around, I would say 283 to 281 is where I would be looking at entering a trade on VRTX. Comments, Steve?
I like it. It's a good pick. It's been solid on the IBD 50 list for quite some time.
Yes.
I like it. The only thing I don't like about it for me, I love the chart. It's a little illiquid for option trading.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. But I love the chart.
Okay.
Doing shares, I'd be a buyer. Yeah.
And the thing about it is it does have weekly options though. And so that's one of the things I do like about it. So, okay, that's what we've got for the stock picks today. If you are, and if we have time and can review one of your stocks, just go ahead and lay it into the comments section so everybody can see it. but let's go ahead and jump over and finish up the rest of our session here. Is one of the things I want to be talking about, what's your track record? I mentioned this going forward, and I went back and I pulled every one of the stocks that I have mentioned since the beginning of the year. What has been my track record? Basically, I'm hitting 74% win-loss ratio, which I'm thinking that's pretty good. And of the ones that have won, they've gone on for an average run of 23%. And then of the ones who didn't, they did basically almost, if I bought them the next week, as soon as they went down 5%, I was out of the position. So this was as of 8/1, so it covered 31 weeks. So I'm very pleased with that. Again, take a look at the stocks you're tracking and the stocks you're trading. If you're not tracking them in a spreadsheet, start, because how can you tell where you're going to go unless you know where you've been? What Jesse Livermore said, he absolutely believes that price movement patterns are repeated. They are recurring patterns that appear over and over again with slight variation. This is because the markets are driven by humans. And guess what? Human nature never changes. And I'm glad you brought up the email situation. If you are an active trend trading member or please verify and tell your, especially if you're a Gmail user. Gmail and Microsoft are having a conflict. And so sometimes my emails, which are provided through a Microsoft server, don't get to you. And that ticks me off. And I really am sorry about that. But here's my email, dww@activetrendtrading.com. If you are not receiving it, please, and you are a Gmail user, this is primarily where the issue is. Go in and you have to tell your email server to accept emails from me, because what Gmail is doing is they'll send you a message saying this is a dangerous source. Can you trust him? Blah blah blah. And you may not want to open anything. And so you have to go in and tell it, yes, I know who this is, and they can accept the thing on that. So just a little bit of a heads up on that. Okay, that kind of brings us to an end of the day. Hey, one of the things I keep a track on is I love trading these leverage ETFs. They do wonderfully. We track 7 of them, and they provide year after year after year returns such as this, where, even if we don't catch all of these returns over a 12-month period, even a half of them, they compound out at over 100%. So I want to provide us an opportunity to be able to do that. So, if you struggle with this, of not fearing the fear of not knowing where and how to exit a position, you need to check out the AutoPilot Trading service. Take a test drive, and you'll find a link for it in the comments on the YouTube channel. If you are a veteran, let me know, because I do offer a 15% veteran discount. So that's where we're sitting. There's the QR code. So, Steve, that's all I've got for today. You have any words of encouragement for everybody?
Stay positive. It's going to get better.
Stay positive and be patient. So we just want to wish you guys, aloha, trade well, prosper, mahalo, and God bless. And if you are not part of our YouTube family, please subscribe, hit the bell, and you'll be reminded of all the videos that I do post on a weekly basis. And there's more of a trading tip that'll be coming up right there. So until next week, again, I encourage you, share a link to this video with somebody, that who might be interested in trading, or just share it on your particular social media platform. Aloha, Steve. Oh, this is good. Anyway, aloha and God bless everybody.
Take care. Bye-bye.